What's going on, everybody? It's Dr. Chris Featherstone here for yet another episode of Unscripted. Listen, it's Tuesday night. You know what that means. I have some of the biggest, the baddest, the best wrestlers of today and yesteryear. And tonight is no different. Why? Because this guy was one and still to this day is one of the longest tenured referees. He's been gone for nearly a decade, but that doesn't matter because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he started at a ripe young age of about 19 years old at the WWE and stayed there for over 2 decades, man. Over 2 decades in WWE in multiple capacities. Believes that he was a truck driver. He was setting up rings and ended up being a very a notable referee, one of the most notable referees in the history of WWE. Long tenure referees. I'm sure he has a ton of stories that is interesting for the people to hear when it comes to backstage. You know, I'm friends with a few refs. I'm good friends with Marty Elias, good friends with Nick Patrick, and you know those refs. I'll tell you, those refs are the ones that has the bestseller books based on the things that they hear and know. So those are the ones who really has all the top secrets when it comes to the stories and wrestling and everything and all things wrestling. I've interviewed this guy before and had a good time talking to him before. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, on a different capacity, but it's good to have him back. It's been a number of years since last time I've talked to and interviewed this person, but it's good to have him back. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, former WWE referee Jack Doan. How are you tonight?
Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you, man. Good to chat with you again, man. How are things?
Doing good. I'm up past my bedtime now. Things have changed. It's 2, 3 in the morning. Used to be getting into the hotel. Now it's 4 in the morning. I'm getting up for work. So
man.
When I told my wife that I was doing this tonight, she's like, you got to be up at 4, right? And I said, well, for Chris, I'm gonna do this.
Well, I appreciate it, man, very, very much. That means a lot to me because let's get in and then get out so you can get some rest, man. So thank you very much.
You called today. I was surprised but glad. It's been a while since I've got to do an interview like this. The field I work in, I'm out around the public and people will find out, and then we'll start talking wrestling, and it brings a joy to me to get back and tell some stories. And like I said, we have a lot of them, and I've been approached a few times about doing a book, but I have trouble. I'm like you know, stories and stuff. But as I get talking, I'm like, well, maybe I could do this because
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
start coming out.
Yeah, if I were you, I would just look at some of your past interviews. Listen to the interview you had with me a few years back, and I imagine every time you talk, you look at the list, a list of wrestlers, that were in the time that you were there. You're like, oh yeah, I remember that one time about The Rock, or yeah, I remember that time about Hogan. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think there's a lot of like as you think of wrestlers, I imagine that for every wrestler from early 90 to 2012, 13, I imagine that there's something that as far as the story is concerned that probably hasn't been shared yet. So I
Yeah.
think there's like a bestseller in the making when it comes to the things that you have or past 20 years of content there. So
Yeah, and it's funny. I just probably a week ago, before they went to Saudi Arabia, got a call from John Cohn, who's working in the office now, talent relations, and
mhm.
was just an awesome referee. And it's sad to see stepped away from reffing, but longevity is what he was looking at. But I hadn't talked to him about a year, and he was driving home from the office in Connecticut. Of course, he's got about a hour and 15 commute to go 30 miles, but
Yeah.
we got to talk, and my wife's looking at me because we're just laughing and laughing on the phone, and that's what we were doing, just telling stories. And that was a lot of my stories was with my crew guys and my
Mhm.
referees that I traveled with, me, Charles Robinson, John, and Chad Patton. And the silly stuff that we did to each other on those car rides, long car rides, 3 or 4 hours. And so just bringing those stories out. And then he texted me afterwards and made me feel good. He goes, those are some of the best times and the best I had. So,
Yeah.
and I agreed with him that, those are, being financially secure at the time and, entertainment, but that, the time you get with those guys that you travel with that become your family, that's what you miss most out of it.
Yeah.
You know,
Very
the,
true. And no one can take away the fact that John's son is a former WWE Tag Team Champion. So, and don't you ever forget it, ladies and gentlemen. Very nice.
Kansas City, go to the Donut King. That's John Cohn's donut shop. So
Very nice. Good stuff. Are you ready to dive into these questions?
yeah, shoot
All
'em.
right. Kelvin is asking your favorite moment during your time in WWE.
Obviously working during that Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. I mean, that's something to be a part of that history. And as they got the monitor and we're watching WCW, and when they're going to commercial, and what we're doing, and that back and forth, and everybody's heard the stories and the documentaries. I mean, that was some serious times, and a lot of fun times, especially once when we started dominating. But that was the best era. I understand. Turning your product to a PG product for sponsorships and the family entertainment, but that era is what I enjoyed the most, and then I enjoyed. And it's not a knock on anything with the wrestling now, but the storylines I really enjoyed back then. It seemed like everybody on the show was a segment that you enjoyed watching, or appealed to a certain fan base, whether it was a you know comedy segment or a serious segment or a Stone Cold, with his butt kicking. There was just so many different characters and storylines that I particularly enjoyed at the time.
Mhm.
As far as athletic wise, what the WWE puts out now, they got some top notch athletes.
Mhm.
You can't take away from that. So.
Yeah, yeah. Weren't you a victim of a doomsday device before?
Uh, I took I took the Vader bomb. I
Yeah, the
took
Vader bomb too. Yeah, yeah, I remember that.
the
Yeah.
Dooms. I took the chair shot from Triple H
Mhm. Yeah.
around the world because
Didn't you
the
get clipped? You got legit injured and you were out for a while, weren't you?
what's that? I'm sorry.
Didn't you get legit injured and were out for a while and you get clipped or something like that? Like
I
like the what is the football chop? The chop block. Then you get like chop block in the back of your leg or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
tore my PCL,
Mm,
meniscus, and then I ended up had a rough couple of years there where I tore my rotator cuff. I had ended up having 4 surgeries.
mm.
So that yeah, that was some bad times. That was some rough times. Anybody's went through any surgery, just the therapy and wanting to get back. And the one bad thing, we were over in Portugal when I slid down, and people wonder, well, how do you get hurt so much? Well, when you get a quick false finish and you slide in there, I'm 200 pounds and all that weight went down on my shoulder, and
Mm.
right away that injured it. And what was bad about that one, they took care of me. I got to go see Dr. Andrews in Alabama, in world renowned, and I came back 8 months of therapy and tore it on my very first night back. So,
Wow.
so I
Wow.
was off almost 2 years recovering from that. So
Mm. Jeez. It's interesting that you say that because a lot of people don't realize how valuable of an asset the referee is in a match. Because and I mentioned before I get into a little bit more of these questions, I mentioned in what your thoughts or your take on that as far as the value of a referee, knowing that this is going to be a 2 count, but now it's not just a 2 count, it's a 2 count. You know what I mean? And it's up for the referee to make that alive. It's not just a regular 2. You gotta slide in there. You gotta kind of, the Earl Hebner when he just kind of leans in for a little bit. You know what I mean? Like you gotta really sell that 2 count. How important is it for the referee to really bring that layer to a match?
well, it's when I first started in, the one compliment I got, this was back when Jack Lanza was an agent, and I just started refereeing, and someone asked him, how's he doing? He said, great. And he said, well, what's he doing right? He goes, staying out of the way.
Mm,
Because people, the more you become a distraction, you're taken away from, the main entertainment there,
mm,
But far as, like you said, I mean, the referee is important because if you don't have any, it's like NBA, you take away the refs, you just got a bunch of guys rep down the court. So
yeah.
it's part of the excitement to be there for that, like you said, that close false finish. And when Vince was there was more emphasis on the referee, because I talked to some of the guys now, and every week it was, get in there, you got to be more aggressive and get the guys out of the corner. And then it was, why are you touching the guys? Every week
Mm,
we had a lot of pressure on us. Vince was really into the referees being part of the match, and one week would be, if they stay out there, you make sure you count, give them the 10 count, and then the next time we'll slow down your count a little bit. So we went through some rough
mm,
years of they were always trying to find that right niche, and then of course with every talent, you got to work a different way. But definitely, staying out of the way, but yet being a part of that match to get the people involved, and allowing a good heel will use the referee in the right way. And it always used to drive me crazy when they would just insult the referee to the crowd. It's like,
mm.
you're really putting the heat on, or the people are laughing at the refs instead of putting heat on yourself.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. I was try to
Yeah.
explain it to, the new guys or the young guys. When you insult me out loud, especially not so much on TV, but the live events, I said they're enjoying you doing that, because we are the hated guys in the ring,
Yeah.
referees, and just about every sport.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. And the top secret is the referees are responsible for calling the spots between the wrestlers too. A lot of people don't know that, but they transport the spots, right? The wrestler tells the ref the next spot, and the referee goes over to the other wrestler and says the next spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
More with the when I was there, the younger, newer talent, the
Mhm.
younger talent. Now, if you got say you had a Cena versus Jericho or, that type of talent. It wasn't too often, once in a while you might be, get told, but those guys, they almost read each other's mind. There
Yeah,
was,
on the fly. Yeah, yeah.
but you'd get something from the backstage, through your earpiece, and you'd have to relay that to them. And my hearing is so bad that sometimes I'm like, what?
Like, you're missing the count because I'm trying to listen to what Vince is talking about. Like, was Vince and Gorilla just yelling in the earpiece, or was it Kevin Dunn? Who
Um,
was usually in the earpiece?
Most of my career, it was Jerry Briscoe.
Oh, but Jerry. Okay, very nice.
Jerry would be getting yelled at, so Jerry would be yelling at us. And then I had the thing with Vince is, he was so into matches, and there was times you come back there and you would just get chewed out.
Really?
But it was forgotten. You chewed out, don't do it again, and then 20 minutes later it was forgotten.
What are some things that you get chewed out for? Like, what
Um,
happened?
well, there was a big span there where Vince really got tired of the guys. I mean, basically, you're going your 3 count, and we're basically stopping ourselves before the 3, and the guys they're trying to make it too close. Where it could have been, we went through where some guys were just like waiting way too long, and Vince was like, "Start counting them out." So, of course, the one time I did do it, I got bonus for it, and Vince was happy. But then it was actually CM Punk and Swagger, and if you actually go back and look at it, he kicked out in time, and it wasn't the finish, and that was to go backstage with Punk, and they were doing an angle with Johnny Ace at the time, and that was a horrible feeling to go back. But Vince had been riding it so hard about these guys waiting to the very last minute. And so I'm like, okay, well, it was so close. About the same time I was hitting, he was kicking out. But, Vince applauded me, but unfortunately, Vince is not in the locker room with you. So, but
CM Punk wasn't happy about that.
I counted out, it was, it was Road Dogg and Bob Holly at King of Ring or one of those. And I counted, same thing, Bob out because he didn't kick out in time. And if you heard the stories on Bob Holly, he he had quite a temper, and there were some chairs flying. It was like walking into Bobby Knight throwing chairs when I quickly exited the locker room. But I had a job to do too. But that was the toughest part of being a referee, because every week it seemed like they wanted you to to change, either be more aggressive. When UFC was getting popular, and now all of a sudden we were getting more like, aggressive, like UFC's type stuff. And then it was, well, don't put your hands on boys. So there were some tough moments, because they couldn't find out exactly how they wanted us, get to that 5 count. They don't, when you get the 5, you DQ them. Well, I mean, if you got Triple H, on top of Cena, and he hits not out of the corner on 5, I mean, that's not one guy you're wanting to DQ.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, hopefully they're your guys that you're in the ring with, you could trust, and they're working with you. So
yeah. Cool. All right, let's do a little lightning round here. Andy's asking, who was the most difficult to work with and the best to work with during your WWE tenure?
Wow. The most difficult, I would say Shawn Michaels. And 2 forms. One, when he was going through his days, which he's very open about, when he was a jerk, and going through times with his addiction and all that. He was very tough to work with in the ring. But the other part about it, he was such a professional that he wanted perfection. So he would scream at you in the match if he didn't feel you were in the right place or where you needed to be, or same thing if he relayed something and it didn't get relayed. So he wanted 100% the best match possible. And which is part of the ref being there too. So I understood that part of it. So whenever I had his match, you're nervous going into it. Now his second, third go around when he came back after he changed his life and stuff, he was a little easier to work with, but very still. And Jericho was the same way. Jericho was just, they want the best matches. They don't, they work hard, work their butt off. They want to be the top match of the night, and a referee can ruin that match. If you're in the way of a spot or you blocked a camera shot, and so those guys. But Jericho's more on the professional end, and Shawn was just tough to work with in the ring in the earlier years. The best probably to work in of all Undertaker. Some of the top guys that you think would be the hardest were actually the best. Rock, Taker, Kurt Angle, all those guys were so easy to work with in the ring. And, it's not a knock on them, but the main event matches, their characters were so over, you didn't have to work as hard. Now, if you're working a Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero match, you're working your butt off because there's going to be 25 false finishes.
Yeah.
When you got the main event guys, you're not going to have as many false finishes or, as much as the a lot of the smaller guys that are doing the flips and the quick roll ups, the quick pins. Those were the matches that were tough. When you're a main event guy, not that they don't work hard, but it comes a little easier. They don't have to do, less is more, in main event.
Now, was it your responsibility to? How much did you know of the match before the match started? Did you know? Because I know a lot of people call matches on the fly, prefers to call matches on the fly like a Flair, compared to like a Savage who's by the book, like really, 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 really big about spots, like by the line.
Right.
And so, how much of the match did you know or were aware of before the match happened?
Honestly, most of the time it was, after this spot here, I need you here. This spot here, I need you here, and then the finish.
Okay.
Unless it was like the Royal Rumble, and then you sit in the meeting and you go over, because there's obviously a lot of spots in there, but they're kind of feeding you through the back. Hey, this is coming up. But most of the guys, they might have sat and went over it, but they didn't want to sit and give you the whole match. It was like, okay, this is the spots we need you at, and here's the finish, and that was it. Unless obviously someone got hurt or you had to change things on the fly. Sometimes live events, how the crowd was reaction. Some guys would change their, put another guy over instead. That wasn't didn't go well over with Vince. Who they had, and there's a reason for them going over. But every once in a while, some of the veterans would feel like the crowd wanted, and they would give them that. But
Can you remember one time real quick of when that happened?
it was Big Show, and I apologize. I think it was Big Show was supposed to win a battle royal at the beginning of the it was the beginning of the show, I believe, and Big Show, I think I forget who he put over, but then the winner of that got the chance for the spot at the main event for the night on the live event.
Okay.
Either that or was a fit, but it was Big Show that did it, and he was such a sweet guy, and he felt he was doing what was right for the business. And I forget I think it might have been Arn, the agent. He says, "You need to do what you're told." So,
Oh, man. All right, cool. 3-minute lightning round. Let's go. Rito, how was it working with Vince McMahon?
Very demanding, very intense, very intimidating. expect you to miss birthdays, holidays.
Wow.
But he took care of you financially. Um, family emergencies, he got you home. He cared about you and your family, but he was, very, this is your job. This is what I expect out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Your payoff is I'm going to make you financially secure while you're here. But he's a very demanding, and I think some of Vince's problems with, not everybody is a Vince McMahon. Not everybody can, put that much energy into, what you love,
Mm-hmm.
and which he did. But he expected a lot out of you. Because his theory was, I'll tell you a quick story. My old production manager, because as you said, I set up the ring too. I was part of the production crew,
Mm-hmm.
but he got called on Christmas Day from Vince. This was probably 20 years ago. And he said, Steve, he said, I got this idea. And he goes, I forget, it's going to be something he needed for the match. He said, Vince, it's Christmas. Nobody's working. He goes, I'm working. So that was just what he expected.
I'm working.
Yeah.
Pow. Cool.
So,
Before we go, we got to hit up super chat. Super chat comes first. My man Rollin, 499 super chat, my man. All right, last question of the night. We got to bring you back on, man. There's a lot of people who says a bunch of
I would love to anytime.
yeah, sounds good. Rollins asking, what was it? What was going through your mind during the Montreal Screwjob? If you were in Earl Hebner's shoes, then what would you have warned or screwed? Would you have warned or screwed Bret Hart also? Like that's a really good question.
Well, I'll tell you, it's easy if you're a Bret Hart fan, if my answer offends you, but Bret Hart was leaving for I don't know how many millions of dollars. You don't do your job, and I lose my job. Now I can't support my family, support myself.
Yeah.
You know, I would have done what Vince asked me to do.
Yeah.
You know, I got to be secure. Brett's not going to cut me $1 million. I mean, to give him a heads up. And I don't mean that disrespectful, because I love Brett. I thought Brett always was a professional, professional in the locker room, very professional in the ring. But, you have a job to do. And, regardless of the whole story of it, he was leaving for, a big contract. So,
Yeah. That's true. I mean, I can't dispute that. Isn't it crazy that this month is the 25th anniversary, 25th year of the school job? 1990, November of 97.
that's
Isn't that
incredible.
crazy? Isn't that crazy? 25 years ago, man. Just time just flies, man.
Yeah. Well, heck, I've been 9 years for me away from it. And
Yeah,
hard to believe. Sometimes I'll get the years mixed up. I'm like, man, it's been 9 years.
9 years. Yeah. Could we see you back?
I would love to come back. It was something I would obviously discuss with my wife. We just got married in July. She's never been in
Congrats.
business, and she's heard the traveling, being away, and all. Of course, they don't travel like they used to, which is a good thing. Definitely will save some marriages, but
Mhm.
I would love to, if we talked about it, and as she's standing here staring at me, and no, as we, if it was something we both agreed this is good, I would love to. My heart, I miss it every day.
Mm.
It's hard to have a job that you go to that you love every day. And
Mhm.
I love that every day. I have a good job now, but there's days I just don't want to go,
Makes sense.
or
Yeah.
it's not enjoyable.
Mhm.
So when you can find that career, and that's the part I miss most. I miss the locker room. I miss travel. I miss being in front of the fans. The fans are, I mean, you've been around WWE fans. There's no other fans like them. I mean,
Mhm.
they're awesome. They're loyal, supportive, and I miss that part of it. Not only financially, what WWE does, because they do take care of their talent. But just being in that ring, I've always been competitive, and although I wasn't competing in a match, but I got to be in there with the athletes and be able to move around. And I probably could shed about 30 pounds before I ever thought about getting back in there. But yeah, if they call tomorrow, I would love to. Actually, kind of, that's a whole nother show. Kind of just got the back story of why I actually was let out of my contract, and it's kind of disheartening. It's just said the gentleman that did it is no longer there. So,
oh man, we got to bring you back for round 2, man. Yeah, we got to bring you back for round 2.
And I do got some things down the road. If it works out, that I'll love to be the first to be on your show to let people know about. It's stuff that I've gone through that I would like to eventually branch out and travel and talk to people about.
Nice.
Things I went through. But if that happens, you'll be the first to know, and we'll let everybody know. So it's something about a year we've been talking about doing, me kind of becoming a spokesperson and going around. So
Very nice. Good stuff, man. Well, you let me know, man.
I
I'm a
will.
journalist, so I like to break the news. So you let me know.
I had downtime today, and I went back and watched a few of the interviews done, and really enjoyed your show. So
thank you, man. I appreciate it. Good stuff, Jack. It's great to talk to you again, man. Great to catch up. It's been way too long. Hopefully, the gap is much shorter next time.
yeah.
And thanks for coming on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, and love the fans and miss them, and hope the athletes stay safe and keep entertaining.
Indeed. Have a good night, Jack. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.